Hey folks, this is Paul from Easy Acres Off-Grid Homestead. I got another project video I'm really excited to share with you. I'm going to be building a solar panel frame and getting started on a larger solar array for my little homestead. I'm going to be using this native pine log, some 550 cord and baling wire, some real high-tech stuff, and I'm excited to have you all along. I think right here is going to make a good spot for my solar array, for my larger solar array. And I'm going to put it to where my panels are just off the ground. The first panel I put up, I set it up like, I don't know, it might be 12 feet off the ground or something, and that was kind of a mistake. I don't know, I just always saw panels had been installed real high on structures, so that's just what I did without thinking about it. But it is very annoying to brush all the snow off of it in the wintertime. So these panels I'm going to install a little bit lower. I'm going to keep them probably about knee high off the ground, just so that I can brush the snow off without involving anything like ladders or climbing on anything or anything elaborate like that. So yeah, I'll get these cut down and then start debarking them and then stain them up to protect them from insects and the weather a little bit, and yeah, see how it goes. The first real crucial step utilizing native timber is debarking. This lodgepole pine isn't only awesome for how narrow and uniform it is, but the bark also falls away with much less effort than, say, ponderosa pine, which is this thick, corky bark that generally takes a year before it falls off. The thing about solar power is that it is always getting cheaper, easier, lighter, more available than it has ever before. Even if you're, in the suburbs or even in an apartment, one thing that I wish I would have done years ago is get a little solar generator. I have two of them, and actually that's all I have for electricity at the moment. As for battery is the two little solar generators. So, if you're frugal, you can live off of them. But the power goes out all the time. So. Actually, there's a big power outage just before I moved out here, and along with COVID, it kind of demonstrated the fragility of these utility systems that we have and we rely on and put so much stock in, and gosh, how really fragile they are to disruption. So, big part of the reason I moved out here was to divorce myself from all that and to, do what I'm doing now. I'm building a, I'm building a structure to mount my solar panels to better harvest the sunlight that falls on my property. If you're an apartment or in the suburbs and you're looking and you're interested in stuff like self-reliance, there's so much you can already do. A lot of folks have chickens, but even if you don't have the space for chickens, you might have the space for quail. Look into that. Even a little balcony vegetable patch, something like that. But I mean, a good solar generator, I just think everybody should have one. I got to thank my buddy Jesse, who lives out in Las Vegas, and shout out to Jesse's mom, Bev. I hope you're watching. But he's the one who gave me one of my little solar generators, and he bought his during COVID because, he was very conscious of the fact that power disruptions happen. All right, I got the main supports cut and debarked for the most part for my solar array back here, and I got them kind of leaned up over there in the sun. That's approximately where my solar array is going to be. I mean, if it's a good spot for a solar array, it's going to be a good spot to dry those logs out. So that way they'll take the stain better. Now for the stain, all that I am using, this is just a mix of some old nasty gasoline that I pulled out of a motor and used motor oil. And I got some wood down here to catch any drips. I mean, it's not much. It's mostly going to be soaked up by my wood, but I'd like to keep as much of it off the ground as possible. I'm sure most people who own a vehicle drip more used motor oil into the environment than I do. So, you know, I don't know. Be mad at me in the comments if you want. I guess. What? Hang on, I got to do something. Then we'll play. Once these are, you know, I'm going to clean them up a little bit and get to applying the stain to them. I'm certain there's some folk out there that might turn their nose up at using waste products like used motor oil in this fashion, but you know, if you live in a modern home, I promise that home is constructed with much more toxic materials than anything I'll ever use. The trucks delivering quinoa to Trader Joe's produce more environmental pollutants than I ever will, and I take pride in taking a product from a waste stream and putting it to beneficial use. I really believe every substance has its virtues. You just got to be creative about where it'll do the most good. Now, this being lodgepole pine, you know, one of the virtues of lodgepole pine is how remarkably straight and consistent it is and relatively narrow, and it is relatively strong for a softwood. But one of the things about it is that it is prone to insect attack. It is also prone to rot. It is not the most rot resistant stuff out here. But I think applying the stain will keep the bugs off of it. It'll also allow the water to kind of bead up and roll off of it. And you know, the water being held onto the wood is what contributes to it rotting, you know, before its time on you. So you really want to minimize that as much as possible. Yeah, after they've been drying for the better part of a day, take a rag and just sort of spread it out and everything, make sure it gets an even distribution. You know, using that gasoline in there really helps it, you know, seep into all the pores and the texture of the wood. Really helps it get in there. And you know, it's not nearly as dangerous or flammable as one may think. Gasoline really needs to be in a mixture with air in order to ignite. It's not as easy as a lot of folks think it is. When I was about 10, I lived in Mississippi, actually on the Gulf Coast there. And in our yard we had a huge fire ant problem. The fire ants in the south, if you're not aware of them, they're awful. They'll build these huge mounds all over the lawn, and if you disturb one, they'll come out and defend their territory rather vigorously. And they're not called fire ants for no reason. Their sting does feel like someone took a lit match and held it to your skin. And it leaves a pretty good sized welt too. Our yard that we had in Mississippi was pretty infested with fire ants. And I would see my dad, he'd go out and he'd take a can of gasoline and pour it down the hole. Well, not really pour it down. I wouldn't say, you know, just a little dribble of fuel down in the hole. And for some reason that usually worked to get rid of that particular mound. Although it was a constant thing because they'd keep popping up everywhere. And you know, it's probably not the most ideal thing to do. I certainly wouldn't use that as a pest control solution around here, but one summertime, I must have been in 3rd or 4th grade, I'll never forget this. He left the house one morning and he told me to get rid of a couple fire ant mounds. And you know, all I had ever seen him do was pour a little dribble of fuel down it. So I thought I would go out there and do that same thing. And so, you know, gas can in hand, I head out to the yard and I find one of the mounds and you know, put a little dribble of fuel down inside. And I remember sitting over, you know, kind of watching it. And you know, I still saw ants moving, so I wasn't sure if it was working. So I got a stick. I kind of stirred it up, and you know, it really wasn't working too well, or I didn't think it was working very well. So I went in the house and I grabbed a lighter, and I come outside and I just kind of, you know, lit the mound on fire. I thought it needed a little fire to get going, and it was a, you know, nice little poof, and you know, maybe like a 4 or 5 inch flame. You know, it wasn't anything too outrageous. And I'm standing over it and just making sure that it's working. And I come to stand up and I look at the fuel can in my hand. And on the spout is a little bit of flame, you know, maybe 3 or 4 candles worth. And it freaked me out. I threw the can of gasoline across the yard and it went on our, we had a wooden fence, and it actually splashed onto the wooden fence. And I thought that I was a dead man. I ran away. Well, I went and got the hose, and I did what I could to put the fire out, and I actually put it out pretty quickly. But I was so scared, I ran to the woods and decided that's where I was going to live for the rest of my life to avoid the hiding of a lifetime that I was due to get when my dad got home and saw that I had burned a good portion of the side yard, charred the fence that we shared with the neighbor, but I believe I was successful in removing that particular fire ant mound, if nothing else. These are looking pretty good. I think I'll give them another day, plus or minus, to soak more of that oil in, and hopefully we get more good sun. You know, I must not be the only person who does this, but I have designated rags for stuff like oils, and it's good to wipe down your metal tools with as a protectant layer on them to keep them from rusting. So, you know, and I have one for like water-based stuff. I have a certain towel that I use to wipe out the water bowls for the animals, that sort of thing. So, yeah, if you do, you know, work around engines and motors a lot, you are going to end up with some oily rags. So store them safely, and you can definitely use that to waterproof and protect your tools. So I tied together a couple of the supports, and what I want to do is figure out, what I'm trying to do is figure out exactly where I want to install my panels, but I'm such a genius, I decided to put them right next to my garden, but I don't want to shade it out. You know what, maybe I should move it back. Oh, young lady, I promise, give me just a moment. Maybe something more like this. Panels. If I am shading anything out, it's just the very corner there. And if I can have the panels running maybe to that bush, that's nice, because then I don't have to evict that plant. I could even conceivably put some low plants over here as another garden bed. Yeah, I think right here is going to be, this is going to be good. All right, cool. I think I've got my placement figured out. I'm still not even exactly sure how I'm going to build this, but I'll make it up as I go along, I suppose. Having these upright supports just lashed together at the top allows me to move and position them in a way to take the most advantage of the sun, and with enough standoff from the tree not to shade my panels too much. I got this pole just handy, and I'm going to jam it up in the lashings and use it kind of as a steady stick until I get them all, you know, secured into place. It's pretty wobbly and very prone to falling over. So here I'm just kind of, you know, checking out the angle of the sun, making sure that I like it, and making sure I have enough ground clearance to accommodate all my panels. I think this is the only time I ever used a tape measure in the entire build. Brought over this piece of scrap timber. I thought that it might be, you know, long enough for me to use on my build, and thankfully that it was, because I was kind of running out of poles that were long enough, as you'll soon see. Oh shit! Oh shit!
Sometimes for projects such as this, I really wish I had another set of hands to help me, but generally I can manage pretty well on my own. Generally I can.
Have to do that right there?
If you look at the top garden rail on the right, you'll see that it's broken, and that's due to me dropping one of these poles on it earlier. Unfortunately, I didn't get that on camera, but you know what? Once I jam this stick up there and get a few more supports in place, it'll stand up pretty firm on its own. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm being really cognizant of the angle of the sun, and I've been out the property for a few years, and what's really critical for me is catching that midday winter sun, because that's when I get the least amount of daylight, and that's when it's most important for me to get it while it's there. So my panels are, the way I'm going to have them orientated is I need 39 inches of space, so I'm going to put 39 plus a little bit for my first horizontal. Now, once I had the structure up, I kind of realized I didn't have enough width to orientate the panels the way that I had originally envisioned, but it's easy enough to work around. And you know, stepping back and taking a break can help you visualize the solution that may not have occurred to you originally. Isn't that lodgepole pine wonderful for this sort of work? There's acres and acres of it beetle killed just north of my property that the Forest Service encourages you to harvest. So here I'm roughly chopping a notch so it'll fit my upright timber. I didn't want to cut into the vertical supports as I was worried the weight over time might make them sag. So once I had them notched, secured with a nice stout nail, brought up on the other side and put it more or less basically level. Probably get rid of my steady stick. Probably not. Yes, it's still very wobbly, but once those center timbers are set and secured, she'll be pretty sturdy. She'll stand well on her own. Being lashed together at the top is nice because I can move them, maneuver those timbers into place before securing everything with really heavy nails. If you haven't seen the build video on my Heyy, I'll throw a link for that up for you right here. The Heyy, in addition to being a wonderfully useful load-bearing device, makes an ideal platform to work from just a couple feet off the ground. It's got 3 points of contact, so it's more steady than my manufactured aluminum extension ladder, especially on uneven ground such as this, and it's perfect for getting me up to lock that top pole into place. And once the frame is secured at the top, the horizontal, everything's gonna be great, except
it's not long enough. Okay.
And you know, the thing about it is I do have a log that is quite well long enough, but I don't want to use it because I get Maidu's toys stuck in the tree quite a bit, and I use this to knock it out. Like I got her frisbee stuck in the tree right now. See? Can you see her patiently waiting? Hey, Maidu, where's your toy, baby? Okay, I'll get it for you. Almost. There we go. There. Oh! So I'm going to have to get a little bit more creative with that other support for my solar array, but I'll make it happen. While I figure out the best way to improvise that upper support, I'm going to redirect my attention to making a couple angled spans of support timber in the rear. Once I get those in place, it'll be much more secure and easier to work from. Sometimes when I hit a roadblock like this or a hurdle during a project, it helps to redirect to another task for a little while and come back to the issue fresh. I'm nailing these supports somewhat high in the center timber just to minimize the amount of ducking I'm going to do going behind the panels. Being covered and shaded, I think I'm going to start storing lumber back here. I'm going to take advantage of that shelter provided by my solar panels and make it work for me. You know, lumber is always best stored out of sunlight and definitely out of the rain. Unfortunately, the area that I cut this lodgepole pine is closed due to snow. Otherwise, I'd go hunt me down one that's long enough, but I'm just going to have to make do. That's alright. I'm used to that.
Let's figure that out. Doesn't gotta be too exact. That's interesting, because when I was up there it looked pretty good, but down here, whoo, that don't look so good, does it? Now let's see what we got going on. So I just kind of bridge that over. Is that going to give me... Clean this up, join these together. And then maybe put another support piece there from behind. And you know what? I do believe we will be in business. One of the cool things about using native timber is being able to get kind of creative with it. So I found this piece from that big old pine tree that fell back there last winter. And I think I can chop this up to be a perfect little support brace for, you know, those two that I'm going to connect across the top. So not ideal, but, you know, gosh, man, if you want to be good at this off-grid thing, I really think a big part of your skill set should be, you know, working with what you have and, you know, making things work. I find myself doing that more than anything else. So, yeah, let me get to that, and yeah, we'll have that thing just about ready for some extra supports and panels to go up on it here real soon. All right, as you can see, my top timber is not quite long enough, so I cut this one out. That's going to be my support, and I'm going to use this to, oh man, I don't know, that kind of has a funky angle to it. We'll see how it goes. But I'm going to use this to hook to the top and act as a support, probably from the bottom actually, so I need to trim this up. But whole lot of sticks and 550 cord, and I think we'll have this thing up here in no time. Next step to lash the ever-living life out of it. 550 cord. Oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm exaggerating or not when I tell you that I've had stages of my life held together with 550 cord. Lovely, lovely, lovely stuff. Because I'm joining these together, let me lash this around. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh, dang man, looks like I know what I'm doing almost. Okay, we are just about there. Cool. Now this isn't meant to take, you know, all of the weight off that top piece, but it's meant to relieve a lot of the strain that's going to be on it because I have this weak point here in the middle. Voila! I think that should do it. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah. Yep. I think that'll do for my purposes. Looks like such a mess, doesn't it? Now with all my main supports in place, it's time to start carefully dry fitting the panels to ensure that they'll fit. Now I'm starting to see it manifest, what I had envisioned in my head. It's a wonderful feeling. Alright, so the way that I'm going to secure these panels to my frame is, I know it's very difficult to see, but with this wire. I got several spools of this at an estate sale. Man, you got to be checking out estate sales if you're after tools. They're great resources for them. But so I've got several rolls of that. It's not going to take much. It's only going to take a few feet of wire to get all of these wired up to the frame and nice and secured. So yeah, it's not going to take too much longer. After I carefully laid the panels on the frames just to finally ensure that they fit. You know, I know how prone I am to rock-headed measurement errors, so it was really satisfying to see them all kind of fall into place.
Last step for now was to cut some lengths of baling wire and wire my panels securely to the timber frame. The frame naturally has some flex to it, and solar panels inherently have a huge surface area, so I didn't want to use screws, which might tear out in a high wind. Well friends, that's as far as I can go for now. I'll have to save up my pennies and scrounge me an MPPT charge controller, and once I have that, I'll have the final component I need to bring this solar power array operational. I'll be doing a whole video on the electrical wiring of the panels and connecting all the components together for a full solar power system once that happens, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. But for now, friends out there all around the world, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And from my little mountain off-grid homestead, I wish you well and be easy.